Imagine this, a generation drowning in debt before they even turn 30. Their credit cards maxed out, rent skyrocketing, and education becoming an anchor rather than a ladder. General Z isn't just struggling, they're redefining what financial crisis looks like in the modern era. The average debt balance for Generation Z has risen 25% since 2021, and credit card interest rates have hit 22%, crushing any attempt at recovery. Rent has skyrocketed by up to 44% in some cities, and 1 in 7 young people is already maxed out on their credit cards. But that's not all. The average student loan debt of $21,000 is preventing many from building a solid financial foundation. At the same time, the job market is saturated, with automation and artificial intelligence replacing entry-level jobs. What seemed like a phase of growth now feels like a scenario of hopelessness. What's at stake is not just a generation of young people, but the future of global economic stability. If Generation Z can't overcome these barriers, they won't have the resources to plan for the future. This means a vicious cycle of debt, instability, and lost opportunities directly affecting consumers and investors. The impact of the economic choices made today will define the success or failure of this generation, and its consequences will be felt for decades. How will businesses and investors respond to this? The chance to turn this crisis into an opportunity has never been more real. 1. Increase in debt and credit costs. Imagine a 22-year-old, freshly graduated and full of dreams, but burdened with massive credit card debt. This is the reality for many in Generation Z, who face one of the biggest financial hurdles of their lives right at the start of adulthood. Credit card interest rates have reached 22% in recent years, a historic mark that makes paying off debt nearly impossible for those without a stable income. For a young person without financial experience, these rates can be a nightmare. The average debt balance for Generation Z has risen by 25% since 2021, even when adjusted for inflation. This means these young people are fighting against a mountain of debt that keeps growing. And as if the situation weren't challenging enough, 1 in 7 members of Generation Z have maxed out their credit cards, putting them in a more vulnerable position than any generation before them. Widespread debt is not just a statistic, it is a reality that directly affects the financial health of millions of young people, creating a vicious cycle of high interest rates, growing balances, and a constant struggle to get out of financial holes. Debt is not just a number on a bill, it is a constant pressure that prevents Generation Z from achieving their dreams and reaching stability. 2. Housing and rent costs. I can barely afford the rent, and that's not even counting the other bills. This is a common story among young members of Generation Z who are trying to build a stable adult life. With an average of 19.8% of their income going toward rent, more than double the overall average of 6.8%, many find themselves with a tight budget. To make matters worse, rent costs have skyrocketed in several cities across the United States, and in places like Birmingham, Alabama, rent has surged by an impressive 44% in recent years. This exorbitant increase has made it even harder for young people to find affordable housing, leading many to share apartments or even move back in with their parents. Housing instability has become a real obstacle for many, as not only is rent a burden, but the difficulty of establishing independence is a constant barrier. Even those who can afford rent are forced to prioritize housing over other important expenses, such as education investments or saving for the future. The pressure to find an affordable and stable place in such a competitive market is one of the main reasons Generation Z is financially strained. 3. Student loan debt. If you ask any member of Generation Z about their biggest financial concerns, student loan debt will likely be one of the first answers. Many young people start their professional lives already in debt, a situation that prevents them from building a solid financial foundation. The average student loan debt for Generation Z is $21,000, 13% more than the student debt of millennials at the same age. With the cost of higher education rising every year and government subsidies decreasing, young people are increasingly forced to go into debt to pay for college. This not only limits their options for the future, but also creates an emotional burden, as many fear they will never be able to pay off their debt or achieve financial stability. The impact doesn't stop there. The high cost of education is deterring many members of Generation Z from completing their university courses, as some can't afford to continue their studies without accumulating more debt. This creates a hard-to-break cycle, where professional growth opportunities are often limited by the need to pay off student loans, preventing Generation Z from reaching their full potential. 4. Challenges in the job market. I graduated, but I didn't get my dream job or even a stable job. This frustration is common among young members of Generation Z, especially those who have recently graduated. The unemployment rate among recent graduates is higher than the overall average, an unprecedented situation that places significant pressure on young people entering the job market. The situation is no longer the same as it was for millennials, who faced economic recessions but still managed to find some type of work. Generation Z, however, faces a combination of challenges. In addition to unemployment, many end up accepting low-paying temporary jobs with little to no benefits. But the problem goes beyond that. The rise of automation and the use of artificial intelligence has replaced many entry-level jobs that were traditionally held by young people. This means that, when seeking their first job opportunity, Generation Z is not only competing with other candidates, but also with machines, making it even harder for them to achieve financial stability. 5. Inflation and rising basic costs. It seems like everything has gotten more expensive. For Generation Z, this is more than just a feeling. It is a daily reality. Inflation has driven up the prices of essential items like food, gasoline, and insurance, consuming a larger portion of their budgets. By spending a larger proportion of their income on basic needs, Generation Z has less money available to invest in the future or enjoy leisure experiences. Moreover, inflation affects this generation more than older generations, precisely because their consumption structure relies more on essential items and services, while previous generations were more established and could handle economic fluctuations better. With prices constantly rising, many young people find themselves increasingly squeezed with no breathing room to plan or save. Things that used to be affordable, like dining out or traveling, now feel like distant luxuries. This deeply impacts Generation Z's quality of life and their ability to achieve long-term financial goals, making the struggle for a stable and comfortable life even harder. These 5 factors combined, increasing debt, high housing and education costs, job market challenges, and rising inflation, create a perfect storm that has kept Generation Z trapped in a cycle of financial insecurity. The generation that should be starting to build its future now finds itself without the necessary resources to move forward, constantly battling economic pressures that seem insurmountable. Are you struggling with financial challenges? You're not alone. Many Generation Z individuals are facing rising debt, skyrocketing rent, and a tough job market. If you're dealing with these struggles, drop a comment and share your story. How are you navigating these obstacles? Don't forget to subscribe for more insights.